Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Oxter. Thanks for joining us. You know, I'm proud to be part of the beef industry where men and women invest their time and energy day in and day out to produce a safe, nutritious, and delicious product. But our business does have its challenges, and some of them can keep us up awake at night as we think about the decisions we should make and the actions we should take to overcome those obstacles. Whether it's commercial cow-calf operators, purebred breeders, stockers, feeders, or some combination of these beef industry segments, we all have similar concerns when it comes to building something that can be passed from one generation to the next. Fortunately, we're joined today by a great panel of cattle producers from around the country who can share some wisdom about those issues we're all concerned about. Let's meet the folks who are here with me today. First of all, we have Dan McCarty of McCarty Cattle Company in Colorado. Dan, tell us a little bit about your operation.
Well, thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here today. My wife and I operate a purebred operation in western Colorado. We sell a few bulls each year, and then we also sell a few select females each year as well.
And beside Dan is Sasha Rittenhouse. She comes to us from Ohio in a cow-calf operation there. Is that right, Sasha?
Yes, yep. My husband and I have a commercial cow-calf operation, and we also have a little row crop, and we also raise children.
That's good, and it's good raising kids with cattle.
It is great.
And also a face that is recognized by many, our president of NCBA, Craig Uden. Craig, tell us a little bit about yourself once again.
Well, Kevin, I'm partners in a commercial cattle feeding operation back in central Nebraska, and my wife and I also partner on about 3 cow-calf operations. But those cow-calf operations are all geared for the feeding sector, so it's kind of a turnkey type of operation for us.
And also a multi-generational operation with kiddos involved as well,
We
right?
have some kids that, they kind of hang around and stay involved. They also have their own operations, but it's been a fun ride building that.
That's great. I want to dive right into it and talk about what your sense is in terms of some of the key hopes and fears of cattle producers as we look ahead to 2017. Dan, you talk to a lot of folks in your role.
Yeah, I mean, as we've seen the market steadily decline in the fourth quarter, and then we've seen it turn around and come back about 25% here lately. So everybody always hopes that we continue to gain momentum in the markets. On the fear side, it's always the fear of the unknown. I mean, the last few years we've seen a lot of regulations that have possibly taken away some of our tools in our toolbox and have fought against the way we do business. But I think that's changed a little bit. I think there's a little more optimism with the change in administration, and hopefully we get a few more things done on that side of things. But the fear of the unknown is always out there, but overall I'd say the optimism in the industry has changed dramatically here in the last couple months.
That's good. And Sasha, what are you seeing in Ohio?
Things are good. We went through a few years where things were really, really good,
Right.
Euphoric, and now they're good. And we always have to remember that. That I think we're going in the right direction. We're going good, and we have a strong association.
Yeah, that's great. You know, we talk a lot about price volatility, and I think that's the lesson the last couple of years. I saw some statistics that Randy Block presented that showed the feeder calf market has decreased 50% from 2014 to 2016, and fat cattle about 43%, and it was the largest one-time drop in markets in the history of the cattle business. Craig, what should that tell us about volatility, and what are you doing to manage volatility?
Well, you know, we live in a global world, and as we saw our industry suffer under the drought, we really shortened up numbers. And it was really a perfect storm when you look at it, because we had other disease pressures in the other commodities. So we had an overall lack of protein. So this market rallied from extreme the mid 130s all the way up to 170s on the fat cattle side, and then it plummeted. So the farther it went up, you know, it's still cyclical in nature. So if the farther it went up, the farther it went down. But it's a little bit like a basketball,
Right.
Low to high, and then we're kind of in the middle now. So we've settled back down. As Dan suggested, we've rallied this thing up 20%. So we've taken out a lot of these extremes. But I think that's the fear when we know it's going to go up. We know there's another day it's going to go down. As markets move in tandem over time, we see higher highs, and higher lows, but it still affects the bottom line quite dramatically.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of folks, it was the steep and speed of the decline. We have a lot of information today, and I think even the experts didn't quite understand just how quickly this thing was going to change. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think that is the fear of the unknown.
That's
but
right.
Now we've stabilized this thing. We have recovered up on the fat side of the market into that low 120s, and now we can build off of that. We kind of have a little different idea where we're going to be from here on, because the problem is the market didn't understand a little bit where the supply was, where truthfully was the supply, and with that kind of upward pressure, we had some issues with price at the retail counter because we drove those prices really high, but now they've come quite a bit off. The nice thing is we never lost demand at the retail counter. Actually, we've improved demand and maintained our prices, and now the prices are lower, we're increasing demand at the retail sector.
We talk about volatility, Dan. What do you see cow-calf producers doing to try to manage price risk?
Well, I think when you take a look back over the last few years, we're kind of in the perfect storm there when we had cattle numbers decline so much because we had drought in so many places across the country. I think we were all actually kind of shocked at how good we are at doing our job, because when you take a look at the expansion numbers, it happened a lot faster than everybody said it would, even the experts. So I think it really says something about the American cattlemen and how fast we can respond to some of these things. And the reason that is because of some of the new technology we use. We have the advancements in genetics and those type of things. But when we talk about trying to manage volatility, I think that slow and steady wins the race every time. And if we take a look back over some of the things that have happened in the last few years, and some of the folks in the generation before me that maybe lived through the 1980s, people my age had a lot to learn from those folks.
Absolutely.
So quite a few of us were still pretty slow and steady. Some of us got a little more aggressive than others, but in the end, it's all going to shake out, and I think everybody will be all right. But some people took some lumps and bumps, but we just have to make sure we can learn from past experience when it comes to these.
Craig, I know there's been lots of talk about this fat cattle market, the futures market, the seeming disconnect. What is the value of producer groups like NCBA being engaged in these discussions as we try to find either new tools or new ways to manage this volatility?
Well, it's very, very important. As we suggested, the market changed. As the market changed, our quality has never been any better. So is the product, is what we're producing, does the product fit the need? And that's one thing we've analyzed at NCB with a working task force. But cattle today grade closer to 75 to 80, which is a big
improvement,
a huge improvement. Yeah. So there's nobody who can produce like the U.S. producer. So we've raised the quality. The weights are higher. Does the contracts reflect what we're actually producing out there? And so when you don't make changes over several years, it has to be looked at. So that's what that task force did in committee, and consequently we're trying to move these tools for risk management to fit what we're actually producing out there. So I think we've come a long way. Yeah. I think it also made a wake-up call to other commodity segments across. Is there risk management tools fitting their needs for whatever industry they're in? So I think there's we've kind of sounded the bell over here on the cattle side of things, and now we have everybody looking a little bit. So I think the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is looking at their products and seeing if they fit.
That's good. Sasha, I guess I would ask you, as you think about a lot of cow-calf producers across the Midwest, Dan represents certainly the Western United States, what do you think some of the lessons should be as that we should have learned over the last couple of years with this huge run-up and now this decline?
You always want to be flexible. When you're marketing your calves or your product, you need to be flexible. And you always need to have a handle on some of the value added things, castrating, vaccinating, preconditioning your calves. And you also need to be flexible in when and where and how you market your product. If you always sell your cattle on November 15th, that may not be the best time to sell. You need to be able to be flexible, maybe feed your cattle a little longer, or have a plan B, C, and D.
I love it. My kids tell me the reason there's 26 letters in the alphabet is when plan A doesn't work, you still have 25 more options. Right. And that's what we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that later.